Tatala Pimima Kalati Wama. Good day, everyone. My name is Joel Moffitt. I serve as the Director of Environmental and Special Projects at Native Americans in Philanthropy. And we are pleased to be hosting our fourth listening session. Fifth listening session here with Indian Country. And we're pleased to co-host this event with the Oglala Sioux tribe. And to welcome us all to this listening session, I'd like to ask Vice Chairman Musso from the Oglala Sioux Nation to provide us with a welcoming. And we have Councilman Cournoyer here to provide an opening blessing for our listening session. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Joel. Just want to say the Oglala Sioux Tribe is honored to host the Native Americans in Philanthropy Tribal Nations Initiative, this listening session. I met the NAP folks when I went to their conference this summer, and I went to try to figure out how we can use philanthropy in our tribal communities, because if anybody is from tribal communities, we all know we never get enough funding. You know, actually, Chairman Fraser and I are here at the BIA meeting to figure that out, but we know they're never going to give us full funding, and so we have to think outside the box and start to approach other avenues to fill that need. And actually ask them that question today of, if we can get monies to fill the need that is left remaining, because there's always a need left remaining. Can we get it from philanthropic dollars? And they said, however you want to figure that out, that's up to y'all. So I hope we can have a good conversation here to hear from other tribal leaders. We have some amazing tribal leaders on who are working in their communities in Montana and Wyoming, and we're here in South Dakota trying to figure out how to provide for our communities and for our people and our nations, because that is our responsibility. We know the federal government has a trust and treaty responsibility to us as well, but we also know that is never fulfilled. So, I'm really thankful for the tribal leaders who are on today to share how they are trying to fulfill that responsibility to their people, and how we can figure that out together too with philanthropy and U.S. citizens, because as we know, the Article 6 of the Constitution states that treaties are the supreme law of the land, and it takes all of us to fulfill those responsibilities. And so really excited to, figure out how we can all fulfill that responsibility and really take care of our first people of this nation. So I want to thank Native Americans in Philanthropy and the tribal leaders, Chairman McDonald, Chairman Dresser, and Chairman Fraser, who are here today, and also Chairman Councilman Cournoyer, who is from the Oglala Sioux Tribe. He represents Medicine Root District, and I want to turn it over to him so he can give our opening blessing. And thank you all for joining. Appreciate it.
Morning, everyone. Hiani washte, ampetu washte, ampetu washte yahapielo, diamachian kapikdelo. It's good to see you all. I'd like to say thank you, Dr. Musso, our Vice President, Dr. Alicia Musso, for inviting me to this, and you all for hosting it. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and preface this with, I'm going to sing 2 songs, and I just want you all to know that the words are a cry for Tankashila to give me strength today, and that we come from a strong family, and we come from a strong oyate, or strong people, and that's the way it is. Tankashila washag maya yo. Tankashila washag maya yo hai. Tankashila washag maya yo hai. Tankashila ampetukile washag maya yo hey oh. Tankashila washag maya yo. Tankashila ampetukile washag washag maya yo hey malakota oya te washakapi etawa uyelo nami tiwa heke Chami gluni haya Lord, Eyaho hewa yelo, Eyaho hewa yelo, hey oi, Eyaho hewa yelo, Eyaho hewa yelo, Eyaho. Eyaho hewa yelo, Eyaho hewa yelo, hey hoy, malakotai, oya te washakapi etawa uyelo, nami tiwa heke, Chami glani hayelo, Eyaho hewa yelo, Eyaho hewa yelo, Eyaho hewa yelo, Eyaho hewa yelo, Eyaho. Eyaho hewa yelo, Eyaho hewa yelo, hey ho. Aho, mitakiasi.
Katsiaya, Councilman Konar, appreciate that blessing. Thank you for starting us in a good way and giving us that grounding that we need for this discussion here today. And really appreciate the Oglala Sioux Tribe and Vice President Musso and her team for co-hosting this event with us. And thank you for all who are attending today, and especially our panel, our esteemed panel of tribal leaders who will be getting to just very shortly. Before we get to our main event, I'd like to introduce you to Greg Maston. He's the Vice President of Tribal Nations Engagement at Native Americans in Philanthropy. And I'd like to have him provide an opening welcoming from Native Americans in Philanthropy. Greg?
Thank you, Joel. And thank you, Councilmember Cournoyer, for starting us off in a good way. I want to greet everybody. Ayukui, as we'd say in Yurok. As Joel mentioned, my name is Greg Maston, and I'm a member of the Yurok tribe. And I'm also a descendant of the Hupa and the Karuk people. And I serve as the Vice President of Tribal Nations Engagement and Special Projects here at Native Americans in Philanthropy. And I want to thank you all for joining us today. We're honored to spend this time with you to hear from our tribal leaders on this important discussion about philanthropy and how we can get more funding to support our programs and our initiatives in our communities. For those of you that are not as familiar with Native Americans in Philanthropy, our mission is to promote equitable and effective philanthropy in Native communities. And we have over a 30-year presence in the field and work closely with our counterpart organizations advocating for tribal communities. And the cornerstone of our work is our relatives and our networks. So we support several communities of stakeholders that work together to build knowledge, community, priorities, and power in the sector. And these networks include Native professionals in philanthropy, elected tribal leaders, Native youth leaders, Native philanthropic executives and board members, and Native nonprofit leaders. And ultimately, we want to see more philanthropic investments reach our Native communities. Last year alone, philanthropic foundations supported various communities and initiatives with over $90 billion in support. And if you count the greater philanthropic sector, over $400 billion was spent to support communities across this nation. But of that $400 billion, less than 0.5% went to support our Native American communities. And in fact, it was actually closer to 0.02%. And we feel that this number is even less if you're looking at support of our tribal nations. But through awareness and understanding and relationship building and forging new partnerships, we want to increase that 0.02% to much higher. If we can get it to even just 1%, that would represent $4 billion of investment for our Native communities. And what about 2% or 3% or even higher? So this is why NAP developed our Tribal Nations Initiative, to provide a national platform to create more education and awareness, and to develop stronger relationships and ways to support the needs that exist in our Native communities, but also to support the great work that is already happening in our tribal nations on important issues such as climate and conservation work, on education, on food sovereignty, on youth leadership, and many more. So this is why today's listening session is so important. In order for us to advocate for more investments and for more meaningful partnerships, we need to hear from you. We need to know, what are your community's needs? What are your priorities? And what do you feel philanthropy could support in your communities? So we're honored to have an amazing panel of tribal leaders with us today, so they can share their stories and their insights. And I hope that all of you can stay for the full session, as we also have some funding news for you at the end of the session. So I want to echo what Joel said. I want to thank the Oglala Sioux tribe for being our host tribe. And a special thank you to Vice President Musso for really helping us to organize this and make it a successful session. So Waklau, on behalf of Native Americans in Philanthropy, we thank you all for joining us today. And I'll turn it back to you, Joel.
Katsiaya, Greg, thank you for that. And but before we get to the panel, I'd like to talk about, just echo what Greg talked about the importance for reaching out to Indian country and speaking directly with tribal leaders, tribal community members, folks who are looking to get more resources for their communities and lift up the programs and the initiatives that are really helping to create sustainable systems within our tribes, and really get back to our way of life, and provide that support for our future generations. So in order to get that input, we would like folks who are on the in the listening session to put their names in the chat, introduce themselves, and also I'm going to ask our staff at Native Americans in Philanthropy, Rose David, to put and Kelsey Woody, to help put a link in the chat for a survey. And so we want to get input specifically from tribal leaders and staff and community members, so we can understand the needs and the priorities of your individual tribal communities. We've done this in all across the country so far, in the Pacific Northwest and on the East Coast, Southeast, in the Great Lakes area, and we've gotten a wonderful snapshot from those communities, but we need some assistance here in the Great Plains region. And so we really encourage you to fill out that survey. And I know Vice President Musso was talking about this survey just yesterday and about the importance. So I'd like to hand it over to her to talk a little bit more about why we need to fill out this survey.
Thanks, Joel. So I think as tribal leaders, one of our main important jobs is to listen to people. And so I think this is, and we're not going to cover everything, right? We have to know about certain things, but we're not going to cover everything in this limited time. And so it's important for us to hear from our tribal folks in our communities and in our region, to know what they think the philanthropic needs are too. And it's data, but I always like to say data is everyone's story, right? It helps to tell our story a little bit more clearer and give a better picture of what our needs are from everyone's perspective who fills out the survey. So the more people we get, the more information we have, and the better able we are to look at those needs and figure out together how we can address those needs. So just want to encourage everyone to fill out the survey so we can get that information and tell our story and try to address those needs with that information. So thank you, Joel.
Katsiaya, Vice President Musso, and And to encourage participation in the survey, we have a $100 gift card that we'll be doing a drawing for after we collect all the responses, and that'll be for all major retailers. So probably like an Amazon card or something like that. And just for a reminder, because I know we have friends and partners on this listening session as well, from our the philanthropy sector, and I just want to ensure that we understand that the survey is geared towards our tribal communities. We really want, as Vice President Musso said, to hear the stories directly from Indian country on the needs and priorities and where they would like the philanthropic sector to come in and help assist. So that's what the survey is geared towards, and hopefully you'll have some opportunities either during the listening session or directly after to fill out the survey. We're going to use that data to provide a report in the fall that'll help both the tribes and the foundations understand the needs of Indian country and how philanthropy can help assist and making sure our communities are strong and whole and sustainable going forward. Thank you for that. So now we'll get into the main event. We have an esteemed panel of tribal leaders to help tell the story of their communities and how philanthropy can help assist them. I'd like to start by introducing them by name and having them tell us a little bit more about themselves. First, I'll hand it over to our host, Vice President Musso.
Thanks again, Joel. So my name is Alicia Musso. I currently serve as the Vice President of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. I'm the daughter of the late John and Vera Musso. I'm the granddaughter of the late Lena and James Musso. We're from Porcupine, South Dakota. My godparents are Howard and Karen Spoonhunter Brown from Arapahoe, Wyoming on the Wind River Reservation. So that is me. Thank you, Joel.
Katsiaya, Vice President. Next, Chairman Frazier.
Yeah, Errol Frazier, Chairman of the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe. We're located in Eagle Butte, South Dakota, north central part of the state. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Chairman. Really appreciate it. Next, we'll have Chairman Dresser.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jordan Dresser. I am Chairman of the Northern Arapaho Tribe. We are located in Wyoming, central Wyoming on the Wind River Reservation there. And thank you all for having me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Chairman. And last but certainly not least, we have Chairman McDonald.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Greg. I want to thank our prayer leader this morning and to thank Vice President Musso for her good words and hosting us. I'm the chairman for the Confederated Seneca Tribes in northwestern Montana. I worked for the tribes since 1983. My father is Dr. Joe McDonald. Many people know him in the education community within our tribes and you know, the entire country for that matter. So I've been elected in the chairman position since January. So I'm kind of a freshman council member, but been working for the tribes for over 40 years. So glad to be here. I'm honored to be here.
All right, Katsiaya, thank you, Chairman McDonald. And I apologize, I failed to introduce myself properly. I'm a citizen of the Nez Perce tribe, and prior to my joining the Native Americans in Philanthropy team, I served as vice chairman and treasurer for my tribe on tribal council for 8 years, and it's really an honor to be with, you know, back amongst my fellow tribal leaders and to really look at strategizing on how we can get philanthropy to shift some more of the resources into our tribal communities. As Greg said, there's a tremendous opportunity and a tremendous need. And so to start off this conversation, I'd like to begin with Chairman McDonald. Could you briefly share some of the tribal programs back at Salish Kootenai and talk about how philanthropy plays a role, if any, in supporting those programs and initiatives. How have you engaged philanthropy over your time, not just as chairman, as you stated, you're new to the tribal council, but in all of your 40 plus years working for the tribe, how have you engaged in philanthropy?
Sure, I'll take a shot at that, Joel. You know, like so many other tribes, you know, we have full gauntlet of tribal services, government operations that we were engaged in. When I first started working for the tribes, you know, we're real tiny back then, and most of the functions were provided by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, their trust responsibility. And our tribe, through time, has really taken serious self-governance, and we've contracted and compacted so many programs to provide a better service and better management of our resources, and try to do that to the best of our ability. So we have, you know, natural resource programs, human services programs, health programs, law and order. You know, a lot of those classic items that you find in Indian country that are the basic paradigm of government operations. And so we've expanded on that, though, to do some more enterprises. And so we've engaged in development of certain companies, and we've expanded to generate more revenue for our tribes to be able to take care of our people and our resources. One of those in particular that more recently occurred was our purchasing of the dam that's on our river on the Flathead Reservation, the Flathead River. It was a dam that was constructed without our participation, unwilling participation, and we were inadequately compensated for it, and dramatic effects on our environment. And we basically pursued co-licensing of that facility with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and we were successful doing that. And in that co-licensing of that facility, we were able to get an opportunity to be able to purchase that facility as a co-operator, and then operate it independently as the tribes. That's one example of where we were in the news. The need was profound, and because of it was so sensitive, we actually had private givers approach us to help us with that endeavor, and had some great support from some individuals that had recently moved to the reservation, that had some funds that they saw the injustice, the environmental injustice, the social injustice to our tribes, and actually helped us pursue that acquisition of that hydropower facility. That was a critical thing for us, and a good example of how private giving has made an important milestone with us. We always, you know, go after whether it's an NGO or corporation where they have a giving arm, you know, looking for funding to expand our facilities. We have been successful in the past getting brick and mortar type funding. But one thing that I noticed is through the years that I've been here is that, you know, there just isn't that awareness. And so every time that we saw that there was a workshop or an event in Western Montana that had a gathering of individuals of like-minded goals and objectives to fund in our area, we tried to get a seat at the table. We tried to make sure that we were there to be able to participate as best we can. We've now set up one of the other injustices we had here on the reservation was the taking of tribal land for a bison preserve. Bison that our tribes helped save from extinction long ago through tribal members bringing buffalo back to our reservation, starting herds here. In fact, as the majority of buffalo in North America resided here on our reservation at the turn of the century. And they were forced to be removed from our reservation when they opened up the reservation to homesteading. And there was a great taking of our land. And one of those was they told us to get rid of the buffalo. We had to sell them. The only place that was willing to take them was Canada. They took the majority, they bought them and shipped them up to Canada. But the land that was taken from us to once the United States wanted to have buffalo preserved, they went and took about 19,000 acres from the heart of our reservation to actually bring some of those buffalo back. We've been, of course, being Buffalo people, we wanted to make sure that we were active there in that National Bison Range, which is operated by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We actively pursued co-management of that facility over the past 20 years. And just recently, we got the land back through federal legislation and part of our water rights settlements. And that particular legislation didn't allow for any funding to come forward. So that was operated by federal support, and us getting the bison range back didn't come with any funding. So it came with the obligation to have it open to the public in perpetuity. It also with the obligation to maintain a buffalo herd and other wildlife on that landscape. All those are goals we're very familiar with and wanted to do, but they said with no money. So it's under our obligation to care for that facility, which we would have, and we were doing anyway, but it has some different paradigms and strings attached to it with the federal legislation. So we set up a Friends of the Flathead nonprofit, organization that we could hopefully get some funding for operation, expansion of that. We want to talk about climate change. We want to talk about buffalo in Indian country. We want to expand the education and awareness of all species that are here, all the native flora and fauna. And we're on a major transportation route for Glacier National Park in Western Montana. So we thought, we really need to set up a 501(c)(3) status that we can, entice people to help us with our mission and expand that education for the environment, for our native people's awareness. And so that's one of the key ones that we've now set up for us. We also do a little bit of our own local giving through some of our enterprises that are really focused on tribal youth. So we do have our own giving arm, but it's really focused on sports and education for our youth on the reservation, all youth on our reservation, Indian and non-Indian. So we encourage our own corporations to do that. We have also in helping out other tribes, we've helped other tribes start buffalo herds, bighorn sheep herds. We want to be able to, through our management of our resources, be able to give back to fish and wildlife resources in Indian country. So that's one of our focuses. We have with other tribes had some animals come our way, leopard frogs from the Blackfeet Nation in particular, that were removed from our landscape. And so we look at it as a two-way street in sharing resources, natural resources like that.
Katsiaya, thank you, Chairman McDonald. And congratulations on getting that land back, getting the bison back. That was a huge win for Salish Kootenai, but a huge win for tribes across this country, and especially your generosity in helping other tribes set up their own buffalo herds and sharing that knowledge and success with all of us. So really appreciate that, and thank you for telling your story about how philanthropy has been engaged with the Salish Kootenai tribe, and how there is an opportunity to expand that partnership even further. The next question I'd like to turn to the Oglala Sioux tribe and Vice President Mousseau. Can you share a little bit more background about the Oglala Sioux tribe, and what are the top needs in your community?
Thanks, Joel. So I first want to say the Oglala Sioux tribe is a very proud nation. We've defeated the United States government twice, and we don't let anybody forget that. We also think that's why the United States accompanies us a little bit. They continue to fight with us and engage us, and we're happy to continue to fight for our people and for our way of life to continue forward, because we don't want our ancestors' fight to be in vain. So we try to continue our treaty and trust responsibility on our end, and try to hold folks accountable on the other end as well. As far as our reservation, we are on 2.1 million acres, which is about the size of Rhode Island and Connecticut combined. And so we have a large land-based reservation and a lot of miles on our vehicles. We have about 50,000 enrolled members as well. And our reservation encompasses 3 counties, Jackson, Bennett, and Oglala Lakota. And Oglala Lakota County is an unincorporated county. And that is because we encompass that whole county in itself. And we do that, in my understanding, is to protect our sovereignty. Having county, come in and it can mess with our sovereignty. And we saw that actually during the pandemic, where our county schools, who actually get a lot more funding than our tribal grant schools through impact aid and such, didn't want to follow some of our COVID precautions and laws, ordinances. And so it was really eye-opening to see how that interplayed, and specifically how we are trying to protect our sovereignty through a number of ways. And that is one reason why the whole Oglala Lakota County is unincorporated, and we try to maintain that. So that being said, and really prefacing with our pride and how we've maintained who we are and our culture and our ways of living and being and knowing. And we also have a lot of health disparities, and I'm sure people know those. Those are what are reported all the time for us. But we know that we have a lot more than that. And I think the needs, I was talking to Chairman Frazier, I was like, man, that's a big question. That's huge, because we have so many needs, and no need is smaller or bigger than the other, right? Because our people have a lot of needs. If you think about our funding, like we talked about earlier, we haven't been getting full funding since the beginning of time, after treaties are signed. And so we are that far behind in providing those services and providing for our people. And so there's an urgency, but also at the same time, there is a need to look long-term. And we always talk in our communities about 7 generations, always planning for 7 generations to continue forward and to maintain who we are. And so I think, along with the urgency and looking long-term, I think our biggest need is to, whatever problem we tackle, is to really look at it as a complex. I always use an example of, we have limited housing on the reservation, and when I moved home from grad school to live, I was looking for a place to live, and there's FEMA trailers all over, because they had given us FEMA trailers for our people to utilize to solve the housing problem. But one thing we forgot is that, like I said, everything is connected, and you still need the infrastructure. You still need water, sewer, electricity, those things in place in order to make those FEMA trailers a home and allow someone to live in those homes and address the problem. And there's many more things connected to housing as well. But I think the biggest need for us is to look at the issues and the needs very interconnected and complex, and really look at all of the pieces of those and try to problem solve from all of the fronts. Like, if we get funding for our courts or for our CPS and we don't get funding for the other, we get funding for one and not the other, they all need enough funding to be able to work together so that they can fulfill and support each other, because everything, like I said, is connected. I don't know how many times I can say that, but I think that's the biggest need, is for us to look at the problems and the situations and the needs from a larger perspective, and really figure out how they're connected, so that we address it fully and completely, rather than doing one piece and then it doesn't work because all the other pieces aren't in place. There's FEMA trailers sitting all over, not being utilized, so that's really, I think, for me, and how I try to approach things. And I used to work in a school too, and do behavioral health in a school, and schools always use the response to intervention. So you need stuff for everybody. Everybody needs something related to whatever you're trying to address. And then you have that the high risk group in the middle that needs a little bit more, right? And then you have the top, the people who need the most and need individual services or things like that. So I also always try to look at our needs in that perspective too, because it's, you know, there's multiple layers to it, and we don't want to leave anybody out. You know, no, we try not to leave any of our tribal members out. We try to include everybody, but we know that we have to look at it from different levels so that we can definitely provide the best services we can and meet those needs. So that's my answer, and not specific needs. I just want to encourage people to fill out the surveys too, who are online, letting us know those specific needs, because I saw we have some folks from our childcare on, we have folks from our food sovereignty on. So I'm really thankful that they joined, and really want to encourage them to fill out that survey, because they've been working on the ground. We have people working on the ground doing this work, and they know best. And it's hard to, like I said, prioritize, but I'm glad we're allowing them to fill out the survey so that we can get those voices here too. So I just want to say thank them for joining and bringing our needs to the table as well, along with this panel. Thank you, Joel.
Katsiaya, thank you, Vice President Musso, and appreciate the reminder of the power of our tribal nations, and why the federal government shouldn't tangle with us. You know, you got excellent ancestors who fought the good fight, and why we're here today. And thank you for continuing that fight and providing that leadership. And yeah, the needs of our communities are great. And as you stated eloquently, the federal government hasn't lived up to their promises under the treaties and other executive orders with the tribes. And our engagement with philanthropy is not to absolve the federal government and take that commitment and promises away. It's to have the private sector, the community foundations and family foundations step up and tackle that need, because it's greater than even what the federal government can do. And thanks for encouraging people to fill out the survey too. I was just going to say that. Check the chat. There's the link for the survey. We want to get as many responses as possible, so we can get that data. You know, as you know, federal, state, and the private sector, they operate on data, and so we want to tell our story, and that's how we're going to be most impactful, is telling the needs and the priorities of our tribal communities through this survey. So thank you for that. Please fill it out. Next, we'd like to give the next question to Chairman Frazier from the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe. Similar question, Chairman. What are the needs in your community back at Cheyenne River Sioux, and where do you feel philanthropy funding could best be used to support your community?
Thank you. I'm Harold Frazier. I'm chairman of the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe. Our reservation's located north central part of South Dakota. 3.1 million acres. Their enrollment is 25,000. You know, when we talk about needs, I don't even know where to begin. And once I get started, I don't think I could end. You know, where unemployment's at 90%. You know, where we're at, we don't have a casino. And even if we did, we're such in a rural place, it wouldn't really help us. So, you know, but there's some interesting things on our reservation and so forth. There's some potential, but one of the biggest things that I don't know, is our infrastructure. You know, recently the federal government has passed a lot of opportunities for infrastructure. However, it just doesn't quite fit our needs, or we don't meet the criteria to benefit from it. And you know, we have and to go to community to community on a reservation, on an average, you travel 40 miles one way on a gravel road. The only paved roads we have are state highways that go across our reservation. So roads is a big issue for us. You know, again, to be able to develop, you know, out there, we need water, sewer, you know, just a lack of infrastructure. That's one of the greatest issues for the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe is the infrastructure. You know, I think and to answer the question on where would philanthropy dollars fit at, I'm gonna say everywhere or anywhere, because again, just you know, it's unfortunate. You know, we always advocate pretty hard for the federal government to uphold the treaties and so forth, but it really seemed like our region has been flatlined for about 20 years, and I was chairman for our tribe back in 2002 to 2006, and I was looking up some old paperwork, and I find it amazing that 20 years later, our funding's still the same. So it is a big issue that, you know, to get the funding that we need to, you know, try to thrive and so forth. So I think philanthropy dollars could fit about anywhere. And Joe, I don't want to steal your show, so I will let you bring up the reminder about doing the survey. So thank you.
Katsiaya, thank you, Chairman Frazier. And you know, like you said, once the needs are so vast and great, like once you get started, we could be here for the whole day, you know, talking about the needs of tribes in Indian country. But thank you for your service throughout your whole time. You know, I remember working with you on you know, opposing the Dakota Access Pipeline, and your leadership with the tribes in that area was key in that fight. Going to the question about how philanthropy can fill in some of these gaps of the federal funding and where we would like them to plug in. I would like to ask Vice President Mousseau, you know, you talked about some of the programs, and so did Chairman Frazier, that are federally funded programs. And you know, tribes we're used to that world, the federal grant world, and holding our trustee accountable and getting as many of those dollars that were promised to us for our programs. What if any barriers have you seen in engaging philanthropy? To get the private sector to come into tribes and help with the needs of our communities. Have you tried to reach out? Have they reached out? Have there been any barriers to creating that relationship with philanthropy?
I think the main thing is, I mean, what you guys have experienced with it and why you started the Tribal Nations Initiative is that we need to be able to connect and figure out how to do it, right? Like you said, we do rely a lot on federal programs and partners to fulfill that treaty and trust responsibility, but it's not happening fully funding. And so we need to figure out how to fill the needs we have. And so that's what we're really looking into at the Oglala Sioux Tribe, is how do we do that? And that's why I came to the conference, is to figure out how to do that. And we've had a couple partnerships in the past. And the question is, and I think the main thing is, like I mentioned earlier, our relationship with the United States government is one based on wars, right, and inability to defeat us. And so they had to come up with a agreement, and so that relationship didn't start off the best. So I think moving forward and trying to find funding and trying to find people who understand, we know the answers in our communities to our problems. And a lot of times we have federal funding, you have to do it a certain way, or grants, right? You have to check the box and meet the objectives. But I think moving forward with philanthropic partners, it's about the relationship and understanding each other, and them understanding, we know the answers in our communities. We have people in our communities who do the work, but they don't fall under the federal monies. They don't fall under the grant monies. You know, and so being open to understanding and supporting the community in providing it for ourselves, and creating a relationship where that understanding is there, and relationships are just really important in our communities. You know, it's the basis for who we are, our kinship, and how we relate to our sister tribes. And you know, we work together with Cheyenne River all the time to try to figure stuff out, try to bounce ideas off each other and you know, because we don't get enough. So we're always trying to figure it out. But if we had partners who understood and were open to allowing us to provide for ourselves and meet our own needs through our ways of knowing and our, you know, just who we are. I mean, our ancestors knew all kinds of stuff, right? Our Buffalo Nation is our model. We've watched them and we know that, but how do you get that funding federally or through a grant, right? So if we find philanthropic partners who understand that and who can meet us where we're at and create a true relationship, not like our relationship with the United States government where they have to fulfill that, where people want to fulfill that, I think we could start a really good relationship and really meet some of those needs and really support our community in providing the answers to the needs that we have. So we're looking to figure it out, Joel. So I'm really appreciate this panel and having these discussions, and I hope some folks out there are listening in the philanthropic world, and we can continue these conversations and make connections that way.
Katsiayo, thank you, Vice President. Yeah, that's you know, I've been in philanthropy 9 months now. Prior to that, like I said, in tribal politics and tribal policy, and to understand the secret world, so to speak, has been an uphill climb. But our team at Native Americans in Philanthropy, Greg and our CEO Eric Stegman and others have been key leaders in establishing that relationship with tribes, reconnecting them with foundations and philanthropy, and to do just that, to make it a meaningful partnership and relationship. And to do that, they need to understand us and to talk to us directly. And that's why the Tribal Nations Initiative was created, and to tell those stories and to make long-term, multi-year, funding agreements and partnerships, and not just, one year engagements, and but something that's more meaningful and connecting to having it tribally driven, to be frank, to not have that top-down, approach where these foundations and their boards are telling us what we need when that isn't the case. And so thank you for saying that, and we're right there along with you in order to create those meaningful long-term relationships with foundations. The next question, want to stick with your Zoom window and go back to Chairman Frazier. To kind of follow up on Vice President Mousseau's answer, what do you feel foundations aren't understanding about tribes, and how can we work together with these foundations and our fellow tribes to advance our tribal projects and initiatives?
Well, I think one of the key things what's always been an issue with the federal government is they come in with a one-size-fits-all approach, and I really think that this is a new area or opportunity to really work together and just come in and remind that we're all unique in our own ways, even within the Sioux Nation and within the state of South Dakota. We're the same, but yet we all still do things a little different from each other and so forth. And in some areas we're maybe a little ahead, and other areas we're behind. So I think if we start working with an open-minded and start learning from each other and about each other, I think that is really crucial. And I think if we went that, it would definitely be very successful versus the government's approach. So
appreciate that, Chairman. And now, before we move on to our next speakers, just want to plug the survey again. I think our staff put it in the chat. Filling out this survey is super important. We need those stories from tribal leaders, but tribal staff, everybody who's looking for resources for their tribe. Could be a tribal staff, You mentioned, you have a lot of program staff from Oglala Sioux on this listening session. I really appreciate that. We need across the board, housing, health, justice, natural resources, everybody who's looking for resources to help the tribe, but not just tribal, staff. We're talking about also tribal leaders in the community, or who have nonprofits. Maybe they're grassroots organizations. That NAP also helps provide resources and connections with philanthropy for those members as well. So please fill out the survey. We have a $100 gift card. So if you're still on the fence, I hope you're not, but we got a $100 gift card to encourage you to fill out the survey. So the next two panelists we'd like to get engaged with on this listening session is Chairman Dresser and Chairman McDonald. The first question goes to Chairman Dresser. We understand that the Northern Arapaho tribe, your tribe, is involved in some charitable giving. Can you share with us your tribal philanthropy work, and what kinds of requests do your tribe support?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for asking me to be a part of this. My name is Jordan Dresser. I am chairman of the Northern Arapaho Tribe. We are located in Wyoming on the Wind River Reservation here. We share it along with the Eastern Shoshone people as well. And we do quite a bit of different charitable giving in different ways. We went to litigation with an oil company, and part of the settlement that we got in the end, we decided to put it with the Jackson Hole Foundation. And that one will directly benefit children with educational needs. And it's in the final stages. We just appointed 2 individuals from our tribe to serve as kind of board members along with the Jackson Hole Foundation. But we're really trying to fine tune exactly what demographic are we going to hit in terms of education, because that's so broad. But at the same time, we do have Sky People, which provides educational services, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But we're just trying to finalize exactly what we're going to do with that part. With Sky People, we have the capital campaign, which they've done for years, and it's reached pretty big heights with that one. And it's getting really close to doing its goal. But with that one as well, we're just kind of fine tuning exactly who it's going to benefit. We're leaning towards more of the technical aspect, and also people pursuing higher education degrees, like in masters and PhDs, because those are so expensive that a lot of times like Sky People, they don't fund those individuals because they're so much. So they'll do bachelor's and associates, which is great, but you're leaving out a whole demographic. So that's a key thing that we're doing with that one. This past couple of months ago, we established a 501c3, and the purpose of that one is for a cultural center. And we're really excited about that one because I worked with the Tribes Preservation Office, and there were so many times we got individuals who wanted to donate, who wanted to do different stuff, but we didn't have a place exactly to say, hey, this is where you can contribute. This is where you can do that. So in a sense, we're giving, and also we're being able to sit up where we can receive as well, and the sector with that one would be strictly with the Cultural Museum, which is very vital for Native communities because it's a place where Native people can make a connection about themselves, because unfortunately, a lot of their kids don't grow up in good homes, so they lose that sense of identity. So I really like this approach because we're taking part of the cultural part as well, but also the higher education part, and helping them pursue those endeavors as well. And so I'm really excited about those 2 different things. The Jackson Hole Foundation, Alita Moss is one of our board members who serves from the tribe. And we're really excited about where things are going. And it's a lot of work. I learn as I go. A great resource is called Hoopa Mountain. And they're based out of, I think it's Bozeman or Missoula, one of the 2. But they have this great resource where they just send out constantly different funding opportunities, which is key. But yeah, we're really excited about those different things. Thank you.
Katsiayo, thank you, Chairman Dresser. And Yeah, that shows the diversity and the breadth of our tribes. And we've encountered this in our other listening sessions across the country, that we have tribes who are giving tribes, and we've always been involved in philanthropy, right? We just didn't call it that. We've always been generous in giving to our communities and to our neighbors, and we're continuing to do that. But some have established formal structures like the 501c3 and a foundation and all that, and some tribes haven't. But they have programs who already set up who help cover home heating costs or provide firewood or provide an elders program, and that's within our tradition of giving and philanthropy. So thank you for sharing your story on what the Northern Arapaho Tribe is doing to really take it to the next level. Next, I'd like to bring in Chairman McDonald from Salish Kootenai. You talked earlier about some of the work that your tribe's doing, and some of the needs to expand on that and elevate it to take it to the next level. What do you see is needed to take it to the next level and to support tribal philanthropy, and what is needed to increase philanthropic investments into our Native American communities?
Well, Joel, part of the, when you think about giving, and it's kind of a new paradigm to have tribes that are financially capable to be able to award gifts, monetary gifts to other tribes. And it's kind of a, in my career, I've watched that change, and that the evolution really came about with, very rich casino tribes, and trying to pay that forward, help other tribes start casinos or other objectives that they may have. But, all of that is that tribal community. It's that being able, I think you just said it, it's being able to communicate and share and be able to provide that within the tribal organization. And I have full faith that will continue and it will expand, especially as other tribes become more successful and they're able to share more. Whether it's small like us sharing our bighorn sheep herd with another tribe, or our buffalo herd for a startup, little things like that, or it might be helping to build a casino on a tribe from one of the other tribes, or the examples there with the Jackson Hole Foundation. That's good too. But the real important thing that I see is making people aware. When I talked about early on years ago attending a group of givers, they're basically family foundations and inherited money, and they were trying to put their money together to get the best effort they could. They were really trying to be responsible, and they were trying to get out into the countryside in places they normally don't go to, and understand what the need is in that area. So some do reach out like that, but what you really have to do is go where the money is and find that. With Jackson Hole, holy smokes, that's like billionaire country. It's incredible the money and the wealth that's there. But most of the time, when you look at Vice President Mousseau, where's the money there? I mean, you got to go a long ways. I mean, you think about, where is the money in America? Where are those people? And if they're starting to move into your community, they're starting to come, and that's one of the phenomena we see here with climate change and COVID issues. People are moving to our reservation and into Western Montana in numbers that we've never seen other than homesteading in Western Montana. So, and a lot of those people are bringing their wealth with them. And they really need to be educated. They need to know what the unmet needs are in the tribal communities. They want to make a difference. They want to have examples of the success that the tribes have done to make sure that they're not going to waste their funding. And so what tribes need to do is demonstrate some capability. They need to get it out there through web-based information. The other thing was the opportunity to present to foundations, to get our Native people on these boards, have representation. Boy, that's just absolutely critical. I just had an opportunity a while ago, which I mentioned to you a couple weeks ago, where a fairly large family foundation was changing their giving from what they had done in two local areas where they had interests in Atlanta, Georgia, and in central Montana, to a climate change initiative. And so they wanted to be educated on what would really make a difference. And so they really wanted to ask local experts, national experts, on the best way to do that. And the invite came to me because I'm one of my main issues is climate change, and we deal with it all the time, and the hardships that we have, and all the people moving here. We can't even buy a house here because of the inflation rate for housing is incredible. It's beyond belief. So I went to jump on that opportunity to be able to provide that insight about our tribal community in relationship to climate change and how critical it is for our subsistence uses, all aspects of our environment, and how it's affecting our community just by the sheer number of people pressing on the resources that we have and the infrastructure that we have here on the reservation. So I was able to jump on that, and that's a critical thing to be able to do that and have that opportunity. I would have ever thought of not going and participating, but that is one way that you make your noise. It's that making that noise, screaming it out, and so they can hear it, using every tool in your tool bag to describe it. And that's what's so great about what we're doing today and what you guys have been stepping forward on and putting together these seminars and the information that you have. But information, making sure that they know that you can carry forward and you have examples of success. And the one other thing that's really critical is the ask, how you make the ask. And some people and some foundations, and in particular family foundations, are kind of eccentric, and they really sometimes don't even want to be asked. They're going to seek out where they want to give. And that's where having a website, having an existing 503 foundation that they can look at and they can just make that donation to is so critical, I think, for Indian country. But there just can't be enough information based out there. It's incredible to know the amount of giving that's in America, and it's absolutely astounding to think about how little is going to Indian country. And that paradigm needs to change, and coordination like this, all of us shouting out for representing each one of us. We are the Native community in the United States, and we really need to share that message and support each other as we go forward. So the more noise we make, the more chances we're going to be successful in acquiring those funding bases. And you said it, Joel, really, really critical is, it's kind of easy to get that one-time funding, that bricks and mortar, but it's that operational funding, that carrying it forward year to year is the most difficult thing to get. And if you're successful in expressing that need and being able to get that foundation or private individual to commit to that, have that kind of dedication, that's incredible. And you need to make sure that you use that as an example. You need to bring that forward if of course the giver is willing to do that, share that experience, because then that opens up that door for other people to follow that. Once you get, they talk to each other, a lot of these foundations and people. And so once they have a good positive relationship and they know that their continual giving to one particular program on a tribe or tribes is successful, and they're seeing the response that their money is being taken care of, and the results are coming forward, they're going to share that with other givers. And that opens up that door because, I think everybody said it, the unmet need is tremendous. It is absolutely tremendous. And so there's probably a long time to do catch up, a long time for us to catch up to what's needed in Indian country.
Gatiayo, thank you, Chairman McDonald. And you said it so well about creating that new partnership and relationship with philanthropy. right? A trust-based philanthropy, and where, you know, you really look at the tribal leadership, the tribes, and just trusting their leadership. We've been doing this for thousands of years for our communities, for our lands, for our waters, stewarding it, taking care of our people. And so they need to hear those stories and understand the success that we've had, and then to fund our initiatives, fund our programs long term, develop those relationships, and make them meaningful, as Elisa Musso, as Vice President Musso said. And I think we're starting to make headway with philanthropy, with these foundations. A lot of them are, you know, we're riding the wave of a lot of good work, a lot of good movements over the last couple of years in the environmental justice movement. You know, talk about Dakota Access Pipeline, talk about Cherry Point up here. I'm in the Pacific Northwest in the Lummi Nation. And then a lot of the social movements that have been building steam for the last 10 plus years. We're standing on the shoulders of a lot of good work from folks in our communities. And I think the foundations are starting to come around and to understand that that the way that they can accomplish their goals is to listen to the communities, listen to tribes, and trust that leadership, and really invest in the tribally led work. So I appreciate you're telling your story from Salish Kootenai, and we needed to amplify that. We needed to shout it, as you said, because the more we can tell that story, it'll have they'll become more comfortable. The foundations will become more comfortable to establish those relationships with other tribes. So thank you for that. And the final question for today's listening session, we'll go back to Chairman Dresser from the Northern Arapaho Tribe. Building upon Chairman McDonald's comments, do you feel there are opportunities for tribes to work together on various initiatives? And do you feel there's an opportunity to leverage the philanthropic investments to support this work?
Yes, I do. I feel like a lot of the biggest opportunities, you know, once again, I came from the tribe's TIPO office, which is the historic preservation. And I really believe in the power of cultural preservation because a lot of outside donors and whatnot are really interested in that. And I feel like if tribes got on the same page, especially with their TIPOs, they could really coordinate different things to respond to consultations in a meaningful way, but also provide, who knows, maybe guided tours, like a mobile app, do different things like that. But also, most of all, have the funds and the means to bring back our ancestors and also the items that are in our museums. So we can establish our own cultural museums, which in turn is a part of tourism, which I don't think tribes have really tapped into too much. I think here and there, we've kind of, sometimes we think that our casinos are tourism, but really it's not, you know, because not everybody's a gambler. And you got to give individuals different things to do as well. But also a lot of our tribes live in very beautiful areas. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to come and experience that. So I really believe that in the cultural preservation part. And I think everything clicks together with it in terms of the museum, in terms of protecting the sites, and also tourism ultimately. So I feel, but the crazy thing is that, you know, I mean, we were so short-staffed, different tribes, that I don't think some tribes have a TIPO office, or not one that's fully functioning to its greatest peak. So I think if we built a coalition with those different groups and just really work together, I think we could build something great in terms of our people. And I think it speaks back to what's important to us, which is preserving our culture.
Thank you, Chairman Dresser. And I think at Native Americans of Philanthropy, we're helping to provide that platform and that network for tribes to really form those collaborations and look at those partnerships amongst our tribes. I mean, we have established a tribal philanthropy coalition that meets on a regular basis. And so virtually. Obviously, we're national, so getting together on Zoom again. But it really provides that space where we can share our stories and talk about opportunities to partner and collaborate and on things like cultural protection, as you said, about combining. Yeah, because that's another program that is severely underfunded for our tribes, the TIPO program, and protecting our lands and our waters and our cultural resources. So we meet regularly, and we can provide that information in the chat, or you can go to our website to find out about the next Philanthropy Coalition meeting. But it's all those folks within the tribe, from the programs who are looking for resources, as well as the tribal leaders who help establish the policy and guide that. They're all welcome, and it's a great platform. It's a great space to just share stories. There's going to be funding opportunities that Native Americans in Philanthropy brings to that group on a regular basis. So it's a great opportunity for you and for the tribes all across the country to participate in. I said it in the chat. We have a couple minutes if folks in the audience want to ask our tribal leaders some questions, that feel free to post them in the chat. One that I'd like to build upon, and actually I will talk about some successes already, tangible successes that Native Americans in Philanthropy has accomplished with partnering with philanthropy. So we looked at, and my area of focus is specifically environmental work at NAP, and we have developed a strong relationship with funder groups, and these foundations, they also group themselves into silos, and I shouldn't have been so surprised about this, because the federal government does this. Even tribal government, we do it as well. But we have funders who like to come together and focus on specific topics. So we've been working really closely with the Biodiversity Funders Group, and they held their annual meeting, bunch of big foundations in Washington, D.C. a couple months ago. And Native Americans in Philanthropy reached out and was a part in, we helped them program that whole event. And we actually took over a whole day of their annual meeting and made it a tribal day. And so we brought tribal leaders just like yourselves to tell the story of what we're doing back home to protect our lands and waters and species. And we also brought our friends and partners from the Interior Department, Weezy Pangariat and his team there. And we really impressed upon these foundations that tribes have been doing this conservation and protection work for thousands of years. And we have been extremely successful in creating sustainable ecosystems, but we need more help. Well, the threats from industry and from government are vast, and so we need assistance. And the foundations really were engaged. They were saying the right things, and not just words, but they have invested into our efforts to support tribally led conservation work. It was a huge win for us to create a tribal conservation pledge and funding collaborative. And we've already attained 5 million investments from these foundations for tribally led conservation work. We are forming a tribal leader advisory group to help us guide that fund and help make sure that it's equitable across Indian country, and we do it in the right way to get those funds out to tribes to do this good work. And the first use of the fund already was a huge partnership with the federal government. This was something that I wasn't expecting, but there's so many opportunities to take private money, philanthropy money, leverage it to open up federal monies. So there was an America the Beautiful Challenge grant that was just announced a couple months ago. The Biden administration utilized half a billion, so $500 million from the infrastructure bill to support conservation work. We were successful in getting a 10% set aside for tribes, but not just a set aside, but a floor. So that's the bare minimum that'll go to tribes. But the Biden administration challenged philanthropy to match that 500 million. So a total of $1 billion is going to be invested in conservation work, with at least 10% going to tribes. So that's at least 100 million spread out over 3 years to be invested in tribally led work. And we the Biden administration actually didn't want because of the monies were coming from multiple agencies, Interior and Agriculture, that they wanted to make it easier on states and tribes to apply. And they didn't want to have a complicated RFP process. So they actually asked a federally chartered foundation to administer that program, which is fairly unique. And so the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation was selected to administer that program. And they haven't worked with tribes. So they reached out to us and said, hey, can you help? Can NAP help connect with tribes, get tribes to apply for this granting opportunity? And so we stepped up and partnered with Native American Fish and Wildlife Society, and we got technical assistance to tribes to help them apply. But then we also were hearing feedback from them in that process and in all the listening sessions that some of these federal programs, a big barrier is tribes is the cash match, the non-federal cash match that's attached to a lot of grant programs. And that's a huge barrier. And some tribes can't apply, can't get in the game without that. And so Greg and I and Eric and the whole team at NAP looked at the fund we had just created for conservation work, and we crunched the numbers and said, hey, we have enough already from the initial investments from foundations to cover all the match for tribes for their applications. And so that was extremely successful, the technical assistance, the match that we're covering. And so over 25% of all the applications across the country for this America the Beautiful grant were from tribes. So we have it's over 330 million worth of projects that tribes said, hey, we want to do this work, restoring salmon species in Alaska and the Northwest, restoring buffalo herds in the plains, buying back land, taking out dams. There's across the board excellent projects. And so we participated, NAP did, in the review process of all these applications as well. And a lot of it is confidential. We can't release any information yet until the awardees are going to be announced. And that should be coming up in early November. But that's a huge success where the philanthropy is partnering with the federal agencies in order to get more access and opportunity to tribes. And so that's a huge win for us. We're only going to build upon that. That America the Beautiful Challenge grant is like a 3-year grant. So next year is going to be even more. This year they're awarding about 85 million, but it's only going to ramp up the second year and the third year. So that's something to build upon. And regarding that, they call it the public-private partnership, where these federal agencies are working with foundations. We want to help establish and make that consistent within the federal government. And so we're helping NAPIS to help stand up 2 positions within Interior, 2 full-time positions that'll look at this landscape, look at the federal granting landscape, find out where the gaps are, and find out and strategically map it out where philanthropy can fit in and plug in and help assist and make up that need gap. So that's going to be going forward, and be on the lookout at the White House Nation Summit, Tribal Nation Summit here coming up in hopefully November, December timeframe for some big announcements on initiatives like that, on how we can really partner philanthropy and the federal government. Another big announcement for Native Americans in philanthropy to really demonstrate tangibly how philanthropy can assist tribes in accomplishing their goals is the Native Voices Rising program within Native Americans in Philanthropy to invest directly into tribal communities. We have just gone over the 10 million mark in our campaign from investments from from the philanthropic sector. That's something that we've been working on for quite some time, and it's just another demonstration of how philanthropy can assist tribes in building up their communities. So I just like to close out on a high, talk about some wins, look at the opportunities going forward to build upon those, and all the stories told today from the tribes, from Cheyenne River, Oglala, Salish Kootenai, Northern Arapaho tribe, I think only will bolster that and will encourage more foundations and more community investment from those philanthropic sectors to the tribes. So I'd really want to thank you for being a part of our listening session here today. I don't see any questions. Oh, I see one. Oh, sorry. In the chat, it said, education is great, but do you plan on helping the student as they progress towards a terminal degree? I'm wondering, I think Chairman Dresser, you mentioned education, but I think this question is for anybody who wants to address it.
Yeah, we talked about that quite a bit because, we have our Sky people who provides higher education services, but, they need more different staff. But that's something that we're talking about with the other funding with the Jackson Hole and whatnot, is being able to do mentorship and helping them as they go. College is difficult, it's hard, but fortunately, there's a lot of schools that are having native centers now. We really advise our students to go to Central Wyoming College, which is very close to us, and they have a native center. University of Wyoming now has one as well. There's one at Bozeman, there's one at Colorado. They're just kind of cropping up at different places, which is exciting because I think it's able to truly provide technical support and also that morale as they go. But I mean, college is difficult and it's tough, but that's our plan, is to be able to provide key mentorship, because I think, sometimes you give them the money and say, here's your tuition, but then it'd be nice to throughout the semester have somebody say, here's a care package for some flu stuff. We did that actually this past few weeks ago. We did care packages to all our students who went to higher education, which is like, here's a little thing from home in case you're homesick, and those things matter.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Chairman Dresser. And we have the other question in the chat is regarding resources and support for tribes or other individual community members to start their nonprofits. And I think we at NAP can address that question offline as we're at the end of time here, but really appreciate that question. And Emmy Herminihor says, if you could, I think we'll get your contact information from the chat and follow up with you on that one. But I really want to thank all of our tribal leaders who have been on this panel. You've been tremendous. The stories you've told, the insight, the wisdom you provided, the recommendations you provided have been invaluable. And I just want to thank you for all your time preparing for this listening session and participating in this listening session here today. And really want to thank the Oglala Sioux Tribe for co-hosting with Native Americans in Philanthropy. You have been a wonderful partner, and we hope to partner with you in the future, and Cheyenne River Sioux tribes, Confederate Salish Kootenai tribes, and the Northern Arapaho tribe, because you are leaders in this area, and your stories are extremely impactful, and we want to work hand in hand with you to really get these foundations in the philanthropic sector to shift more money and resources to tribes for these awesome initiatives and projects. So thank you once again for today.